The thing that I admire about astronauts, so there's a few things. They're curious, they don't give up, they keep trying, and they want to be a part of something greater than themselves.
For thousands of years, humans have stared at the moon and wondered, what's out there? In just days, we take the next giant step in answering that question. The Artemis mission isn't just another launch, it's the beginning of humanity's return to the moon and the doorway to Mars. And now, you're not just hearing about space from a textbook, you're going to meet the people who are actually making this future possible. On this show, we have the minds behind the machines, the science behind the rockets, and the human stories behind the astronauts. A rocket scientist who calculates how we escape Earth's gravity, a NASA engineer working at the heart of America's space program, and the woman known as the Astronaut Wrangler, who has worked alongside Buzz Aldrin and the legends who walked on the moon. These aren't just movie characters, these are real people, real careers, real paths that started exactly where many of you are right now, curious, unsure, and looking up at the sky. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on space. This is the Artemis generation, and this is your behind-the-scenes pass to space. First up, the math that makes rockets fly. When a rocket leaves Earth, it isn't just power, it's precision. Every angle, every force, every fraction of a second has to be calculated perfectly. Adam Lackman is a ballistician at Aerojet Rocketdyne, the company behind propulsion systems that power some of the most important missions in space history. His job? Making sure what we send up actually gets to where it's supposed to go. Adam, you literally help humans escape Earth's gravity. No pressure, right? Next, we go straight to NASA. Behind every launch you see on TV are thousands of engineers, scientists, and specialists working together like the most high-stakes team project on Earth, except the project is space. James Park is a rocket scientist at NASA working on the heart of America's space program. He lives in the world where problem-solving meets innovation and where teamwork can determine the success of a mission millions of miles away. And now, the human side of space. Astronauts may be heroes, but they're also people. And someone has to help guide their stories, their missions, and their impact on the world. Christina Koch is known as the Astronaut Wrangler. She has worked alongside Buzz Aldrin, helped produce global space events, and built a career that connects science, storytelling, and humanity. She started in the music industry and ended up helping shape how we experience space history. Dina, you went from the music world to managing legends of space. Now, that's a career plot twist that we need to unpack. Right, so we've got rocket science, NASA, and astronaut legends all at one table. Let's start at the beginning because none of you were born wearing space badges. Adam, in one sentence, what does Artemis mean for humanity?
This is humanity's chance to, do something we haven't done in over 50 years, and that's get people back to the moon. Been a long time since we've been there. We've had the capability. It's nice that the excitement and the will to go back, has returns. I think it's going to be a lot of exciting things that are going to come out of this.
And James, what gives you chills about this mission?
I think the thing that gives me chills the most is thinking about how isolated those astronauts are going to be. They're going to be farther out into space than humans have ever been before in history. And they're going to be on the far side of the moon. And I mean the far side of the moon. And they're going to be able to see all of human existence in a spot that's probably about that big.
And Christina, For you, what does Artemis mean for humanity?
Well, it's exciting because I'm the witness to the impact of Apollo, having worked with Apollo astronauts for 18 years. So for me, Artemis is exciting because it shows we still have the capacity to explore. And this time we're taking the first woman and a more diverse crew than we've ever taken. And I think that inspiration is really going to excite the world, I hope, the way that Apollo did.
Adam, what was your very first memory of being fascinated by space?
When I was a kid, my elementary school years in Orlando, we were able to walk out of our house to an empty street in a neighborhood that hadn't been built up yet. And down straight at the end of the street, it looked straight toward the Cape. So we'd be able to go out there and watch rocket launches. It was in the heyday of the shuttles. Saw countless shuttle launches from there. That was cool. Orlando was a big rocket town. The space center there was named for John Young, one of the first shuttle pilots, and
And a moonwalk.
a moonwalker. True. So yeah, kind of grew up around that in Orlando during my formative years. So don't really have a first, just living there, and all of that kind of combined got me excited about space at a young age and never looked back.
And Christina, what would 15-year-old version of you never believe about the fact that you're doing something related to space?
I grew up in a family of artists and musicians, and I was in a family band at the age of 15, like the real life Partridge Family with my sister and my brother and my dad. So, and I did not like doing math at all. So I would be shocked that I work with astronauts and work in space now, because this was not the plan for my life at all. But yeah, it's you could never have predicted that this is where I would be at this point in my life.
And James,
My very first memory of being fascinated by space was visiting the Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. I was just blown away from them. They had like a mock-up of Star Lab up there, Space Lab up there, pretend astronauts inside. It just blew my mind. It was amazing.
now let's move into your formative years, your high school, college, your very first job. And let's talk about the types of skills that you are learning through each one of those phases of your life, because that's so important for our young ones to hear. What were your steps? Like, how did you actually get to where you are now, so that they can take some notes, get your paper and pencil and pen out, kids, and like take notes right now, because you're going to hear some good stuff. So James, what do students ignore that turns out to be critical?
The value of putting hard work in and learning deeper. I think for me, a big focus when I went back to school to get my PhD was to not chase grades and work hard and take the hardest classes. And I think a lot of my peers would miss that, and they were more concentrating on a 4.0 than they were just learning the material.
That is brilliant advice, because since graduating, how many people have asked you if you had a 4.0?
0.
Exactly. So, Christina, what skill did you learn then that helps you today?
Well, there are a couple of things. So being resourceful. Often people will ask me what my PhD is in, and I say getting stuff done. I don't have all the higher education degrees that everybody else has, but I'm a hard worker. I'm a lifelong learner, and there's always another way to figure something out. Sometimes people hit a roadblock and they think that's it, I can't do it, or it's done. And I have learned over my own life and as a young person, there's always another way. The other thing I would say is not being afraid to ask for help. This is something. I have a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old, and even my 14-year-old, she is afraid to ask her teacher for help if she doesn't understand. But I ask people for help. Sometimes I'm in a situation, even now, where I've done a lot in my career, and I'm like, man, I don't know what to do. So I call people and say, man, I don't know got any ideas, or advice about how I should handle this. So that's something I think it's good for them, young people especially, to understand you can ask for help. And then being resourceful, finding ways to make something work instead of thinking there's just one way is a really powerful way to move forward in things and to learn. And so resourcefulness, that's the big one. I think that is super helpful.
And Adam, high school, what was a skill that you learned then that still helps you today?
How to not be too hard on yourself when you mess up, and how to brush off criticism from other people. Those are big things. Things that'll just happen. High school Kids can be a little mean sometimes. Not me, I was an angel, but all the other kids, and it's important moving forward out of that to just be able to take criticism, to pick yourself up if you get knocked down, if you run into something on a project and work out the way you want it to do. You can't let it keep your ground down. You got to pick yourself back up and move on. It's probably the biggest things coming out of high school that I think I learned. And, laugh, be able to laugh at yourself, make other people laugh at things, and stuff goes a lot smoother when you can do that.
And Christina and I were talking earlier this week, and one thing that we both were mentioning is teenagers, be teenagers. Enjoy being a kid right now because adulting isn't always easy. So drag out being a kid for as long as you can and just enjoy those years and use that time to fail because you have your parents around to help get you back on track. If you fail at something, they're there to support you. You've got to learn how to have failures because that helps you to grow.
Now kids are told you need to know. You have to, like my son, he just got this packet. He's in 5th grade saying, now you need to think about the job that you want to have. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like I know so many adults who don't know what the heck they
I was
want
gonna
to do.
say,
Be a
I'm a
kid as
grown man. I
long
don't have it all figured out.
be a kid as long as possible. Enjoy your childhood. This is what I often say to my kids is like, you got the rest of your life to be a stressed out adult. Enjoy your childhood as much as you can. So maybe I'm too soft of a mom, but I also know that you don't get that time back, and kids should be able to be kids.
Christina, let's continue this with what did you learn outside of class that mattered more?
I mean, I know there's a lot of pressure when kids are in school, but being able to interact with other kids or other people, especially for young people now, I mean, they are hearing all the time, AI is going to take your jobs. I think that the most valuable thing outside of school, because you are with your friends and stuff, but when you're outside of school, hanging out with your friends, having human interactions, that stuff is so important. And I'm not sure that we stress it enough. And now every kid has a device in their hand. Young people need to understand the value of hanging out and looking someone in the eye and laughing with them. These things are really important because I think we all know when we go into our careers, your relationships with your coworkers and your colleagues and things like that, it is amazing how valuable that is. In some ways, where you're asking for help, but even beyond that, sometimes the exact thing I need is something that someone I've developed a relationship with is able to provide to me. So I think that building relationships with people outside of school and outside of the academics is such a valuable thing that we have to remind or teach young people to do now because they don't communicate the same way that we do. My kids are looking at their device saying, I'm like, you need to go hang out with your friends. What do you mean? I talk to them all the time. I'm like, that's not talking to them. That's just relaying information, in digits and like with pixels. It's not real human interaction. So that's something I would say I really think we need to stress is that kids should develop relationships and have fun and, laugh and play and value that because that's really going to help you later on.
Adam, who is known as the VP of morale at his company, who's always
Made up
boosting
title.
everybody up, having fun. I think fun is one of the most important things in communicating. So, Adam, what did you learn outside of class that mattered more?
Jeez. So my first year of college was a rough one. I'll say that. So without going into too many specifics, I'll say that, when you're out in the world for the first time, it's a lot of kids' first taste of freedom away from home, away from their parents. And maybe you go a little too far, get a little too carried away. I definitely did. But the important thing there is to not continue doing that, right? I realized that I went too far and said I got to bring it back down a bit and find a nice balance between learning what I'm in college to do, uh, and still having fun. And that goes on through life too, finding that balance between, doing work, doing the stuff you have to do, and still making time for fun, to do the things you want to do, the things you enjoy. If you don't have that balance, then life's going to not be as fun as it could be. So you always want to make sure you have time for fun, right? Make time for you. Don't just dedicate everything to work, but don't go too crazy either, where it starts to hurt you in other ways, like costing you your scholarship and then running your student loans up by the end of college. So find that balance. That's about the important thing, or most important thing I learned from school in general, right? Do the work you need to do. Make sure you have time uh, for the fun stuff as well.
James, what class kicked your butt in college, but it made you better?
Probably the one that kicked my butt the most was thermodynamics. It was the filter class in engineering. And the very first day, the professor's like 60% of the students don't pass this class their first go. And that was terrifying. And he's like, 30% of you are here the second time around. So I studied my butt off for that class and I did do well, but it was very hard. It took a lot of work and he meant it.
And Adam, you're shaking your head, so I'm guessing your professor kind of did the same thing.
I was asking if he went to UF also, because that's exactly how my thermo class started. We had 2 semesters of it. And I'll say 2 semesters of thermo took me 3 semesters to get through.
Yeah.
So that class is no joke.
Okay, so kids, just be ready for that class. Write that one down and know you need to go and start reading up right now. Christina, what was your first I can't believe I'm here moment as far as your first job in this industry?
I mean, well, I had quite a career before I even worked with astronauts. So I was, like I said, in a family band, and then I moved to LA to become a rock star, and I was signed to Warner Brothers, and then I ran a media company for John Tesh, for those who remember him. He was on Entertainment Tonight. So the funny thing is by the time I started working in space, I had done a lot in entertainment. But I will say I took the Buzz Aldrin job and I just thought, this is going to be a piece of cake working for an old dude who walked on the moon. This is going to be nothing compared to what I had done. I will say, I think the moment that I realized that it was a big deal was getting to go to the White House with the Apollo 11 crew and meeting President Obama and being there with Neil Armstrong and Michael Collins and Buzz Aldrin. And, I offered to go. I was like, I will pay my own way to go. And NASA brought me in to help with that 40th anniversary of Apollo 11. I look back at that time. That was my very first trip to Washington, D.C., was for the 40th anniversary of Apollo 11. So pretty big moment for me to realize, wow, I am, here I am with global icons of space. But I will tell you, it wasn't until I introduced Buzz Aldrin to Stephen Hawking about 2.5 years later that I really started taking it much, much more seriously. Wow, maybe I need to think about this as more than just my job. So, I've been in some pretty incredible rooms in the world. And the thing about this that I like to tell people is because they would say to me constantly, how did you get this job? And I'm like, well, I applied. I applied and I had the exact skills, which was not an engineer or a scientist. My entertainment skills or being able to manage media, market, licensing, vending was exactly what was needed for the job that I did with Buzz Aldrin. It wouldn't have been right for it. It wasn't an engineering job or a scientific job. I like young people to understand that because, they had interviewed dozens of people and I was the final person that they interviewed. And I was the one who had the skills that was needed for this job. And so I like to tell people this too, because it's like everyone thinks your only pathway to working in space is to be a scientist, an engineer, or an astronaut. And so I want young people to know there's lots of pathways to get there, and I'm living proof of that too. So, and I'm lucky. I fell in at the top, at the top of the astronaut. So, but yeah, I mean, I've had some pretty crazy adventures over the years.
I can only imagine being Buzz Aldrin's right-hand woman that you got to meet some really impressive people.
Yeah, it's an understatement. My life doesn't even sound real, but I do have thousands of photos and videos and things like that. So it's something that over time, I think I'll eventually share. But I tell people about some of these things and I know they can't believe it. And even sometimes I'm like, I can't believe it. But I also like to say I'm living proof that you can come from a humble background and look at what it has led me to. And I'm really excited to be in space. I'm on a permanent spacewalk now.
James, what job did you have that looked small at the time but changed everything for you?
I feel like I've had several. So I first entered the workforce in 2008, right after the recession, and I was a park janitor. And I feel like that taught me a lot about everybody's role and how important it is to take every job seriously and commit yourself to it. And then the second job was with the Texas Transportation Institute. It was a work study job, and I just went in and I counted cars, and it was really mundane work nobody else wanted to do. But I did it as well as I could, and it ended up getting me the letter of recommendation that ended up getting me my job with NASA.
Adam, what was your first I can't believe I'm here moment?
So it would have probably been my first day at Pratt and Whitney when I started there after coming out of college with no job, right? Living back at home, ready to go back to Dairy Queen. And I kind of lucked into something up at Pratt in West Palm Beach, working on the space side of the business, working on rocket engines, upper stage rocket engines. I got sat next to this guy who's Russian, from Russia. He's American now. He had all this old timey stuff. He had a slide rule, he had limiter, he had all the old tools of engineers that you hear about, but you never see anymore. Because I grew up in the calculator age, right? So seeing all that, hearing him talk, sitting next to him and listening, and then it just stunk into my head that like I'm gonna be working on something I only ever thought about growing up. And now here I was, I had my own cubicle. I'd only heard about cubicles, never actually sat in one, and I got this Russian rocket scientist next to me who's talking all his stories from the past and learning from him, all these other guys I was working with, men and women who have been in industry designing rockets for years, and I'm going to be learning how to do it from them. And it was just something that first day once I got into my cube, and it's pretty incredible, you know. Fortunate to work with such smart people on this. Never really thought growing up that that's how work would be, but now it's how it is every day.
Let's get down to like more nitty-gritty in the actual careers. James, what skill do NASA teams value more than intelligence?
Hard work, lots and lots of hard work. Need intelligence for like this much of it, and then that much of it is hard work. It's just putting your nose to the grindstone and getting that hard work done so that you can let your brains do the part that really makes that leap.
That's great advice. Adam, what is the biggest myth about rockets?
The biggest myth is that they're hard. That's the secret right there. I'm outing it. Everybody that said, you're a rocket scientist, it's hard. That's just a thing that we put on in the industry so people think we're smarter than we really are. It really isn't. I mean, rockets operate on pretty simple principles. Putting them into action, there's a lot of uh, finesse that has to be done, right? They can be difficult and tricky, but the basics behind how they work. Any kindergartner that's ever blown up a balloon and let it fly around the room understands the basics of how rockets work. And then it's just a matter of fine tuning that knowledge and making it so you can design a rocket to go where you need it to go, how fast exactly. But those are just the little details. The basics of rockets, super simple. And, I mentioned earlier that people think a lot of it is, engineers and scientists are the kind of people that could get into this, but there's a lot of people I work with that don't have backgrounds in engineering or science either that are just as critical to making the rockets that we build possible and making them fly today. I work with history majors and English majors, and they're all working at my company now. Ones I worked at before, I'm sure at NASA, their jobs are just as critical to making these things work as the engineers and the scientists are. It's an industry that is open to anybody. Don't be put off by it thinking it's too hard to get into or that you're not smart enough, because that's just not true.
Christina, one big question I know all the kids are going to want the answer to is what trait do all astronauts have in common?
The thing that I admire about astronauts, so there's a few things. They're curious, they don't give up, they keep trying, and they want to be a part of something greater than themselves. And I would argue that that's not just astronauts. I think that's everybody who works in the space business, because you can be super smart, like you say, like James said earlier, or you mentioned, nobody actually checks to see if you had a 4.0 or anything like that. I mean, half the people I have known were C students in school. They wanted to do it so bad and I'm talking about astronauts too, by the way. They just wanted to do it so bad that once they made the decision to be part of space, they just didn't give up and they just kept trying. So I think, that's the thing that I admire about not only astronauts, but also just people who work in the space business. That's what it is. It's being curious, don't give up, keep on trying. And also it's great to root for everybody else. Like even in competitive companies, when somebody's rocket fails, everybody's rooting for them to try again. And so I think that that's something that's really special from astronauts to every part of the industry. And that's something that I think is super valuable. Be curious, don't give up, be part of something greater than yourself.
Now we're going to go to the rocket round. Okay, so answer each one of these with a short answer or word. What is one technical skill?
Math.
Communication and teamwork. I'm saying too.
Resilience.
What is one people skill?
Emotional intelligence.
Oh, I already went with the teamwork before, but I'm going to say it again.
Respectfulness, respect everybody at every level of every job.
Next, one mental toughness skill.
I guess grit.
Persistence.
I might go back to resilience. That is really important.
One skill you learned the hard way.
Everything.
Patience.
Humility.
Yeah. And what is one skill that teens can start building today?
Go back to grit.
I'm going to take humility on this one.
I'm going to go back to resourcefulness. I think that's super powerful.
Yep. Okay, kids, so you've heard it straight from them. These are the skills. So now we're going to go more into the human side of achievement and really dig deep into dream jobs. James, what do you think young people misunderstand about dream jobs?
Just the tremendous amount of hard work that's required, which is why it's really great to have a lot of grit. Just being able to sit there and get the tough part of the job done so that the dream part can happen. Because if you don't set that foundation to be able to get over that wall in the first place, you never get there. It's that hard work. And then that intelligence is what's going to make that difference, or whatever that thing that you have is. But you got to set that good base.
Christina, what is one failure you're grateful for?
Well, I've had quite a few failures, and I think that that's something that most people don't realize is that we don't share all our failures, right? We share our successes, but the one that has led me to what I'm doing now, which was I was going to take over Times Square for the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11, and I had invested a ton of resources. I had a ton of people coming to volunteer and flew in astronauts for this. And then it was 115 degrees and they canceled my permit. I was going to put a moonscape on the ground in Times Square so people could walk on the moon. City called me and said, sorry, we have to cancel your permit and all permits because it's 150 degrees outside. And that was a pretty big blow. I had been working on that for 6 months. And somebody looked at me and said, well, I guess we're going home. And I was like, no, hold on, I'm thinking. And so what I did was, this is the resourcefulness. We decided to move everything inside Marriott Marquis Hotel. And the reason that turned in from a failure into a positive was that I still pulled it off. It wasn't what I was hoping to do, but it solidified my relationship with Nicole Stott, the NASA astronaut that I travel with all the time, because she said, I realized that you cared about the kids, because there were all these kids from the New York City Department of Education who'd been making moon and Mars bases that they were going to showcase at this and show to the astronauts. So finding a way to make sure that those kids could still do that made Nicole say, okay, you and I are going to be friends now, because this wasn't just about the glory of Times Square. You cared about the kids and making it still happen. So that was a case of like a major failure and being very disappointing, to have worked on it for many months, but then salvaging what we could. And then now it has led me to this amazing relationship and partnership. We call each other partners in purpose. So sometimes your biggest failure can turn into something that leads you to something greater.
And Adam, dream jobs. What do you think kids misunderstand about dream jobs?
I think kids might have an idea of what their dream job is or what it will be. And then I think their reality creeps up on them eventually. And it's very hard to hit that. But I think you find out that when you get out into the workforce and your dream job or your job turns out to not be the dream you thought it was, you might actually fall into something else that you never realized was your dream job until you got into other things. I grew up, my mom's a teacher. She was a school teacher, and I never wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to work on rockets. That's what I do. But as part of my job now, I train a lot of the new employees, as well as some of our older employees at our manufacturing sites. And basically, I've become a teacher, and I enjoy the heck out of it. Never really thought I would, so never thought that would be like a dream job type thing, but I kind of fell into it. So, don't get hung up if you have an idea of what your dream job's going to be when you're in school. And then when you get out to the workforce, find out that it's not exactly how you thought it might be, because you might find yourself wandering into another dream job you never even thought you would consider.
And that's why I always say it's so important to have so many layers of skills, because your dream job is going to have a variety of different things that you can do. So it's not just, oh, I'm only going to be a scientist, or oh, I'm only going to be an engineer. Like you said, like you're known for being a great mentor. And so that's just another layer
Kid.
that you get to add. James, what careers do you think will exist 10 years from now?
There are going to be a lot of careers that don't exist now that are going to exist in 10 years. I think boots on the moon is coming. They're going to need all the things we need on Earth, only we're going to have to supply it. We're going to have to make it sustainable, and it's going to have to grow. And it's everything.
Adam, what happens after we return to the moon?
I think we're going to stay this time after, we get a few of these Artemis missions in, just to show that we can go back and get a handle on, orbiting on this next flight, right? And then returning folks, and then, landing people back onto the surface of the moon. I think once we get that confidence back that we can do those things, we're going to start sending a lot more people, a lot more things up there, and establishing more of a permanent presence. So that's something that, humanity's never had to deal with. Right. We've had people living in space for years on the space station. We've had like pretty much a permanent human presence off the planet, granted just in orbit for a couple decades now, but it's going to be a common thing in the near future to have a permanent human presence on another body in space. So I think that's coming real soon.
And Christina, what careers do you think will exist in 10 years from now that don't exist right now?
I believe, number one, every job we have on Earth, we are going to need in space. Because if we're going to live on the moon, we're going to have to have all kinds of skill sets. Right now, the type of people who go to the space station is a very limited skill set, to be honest. And even if you're an engineer, they train you to be the medical officer. But eventually, we really need real doctors, real nurses, other people doing a lot of these jobs. And I think, even though everybody says AI is going to take your jobs, I mean, AI is a tool that'll help us accelerate a lot of other things that we need to do. But AI still just does what we tell it to do, humans tell it to do. That's probably going to help speed up some other processes, but it's going to also reveal other things that we, the humans, have to do. So, because we don't really know, we don't know what jobs there might be, but we do know what we are going to need to be able to survive there. And until we put that human presence there for long term, there's a lot of things we have to learn about living on another planet. And that's going to develop all kinds of new materials and lots of new kind of ways of shielding for the habitats. And there's lots of communications that are going to have to happen at the moon, and energy types of things. So there's so many possibilities of what's going to evolve from that. And I think young people, it's a very exciting time for them to be a part of that as they're growing, and in the next 10 years. I'm pretty confident we'll be able, even for space tourism, to be able to get to go to the moon. So I'm excited about it. None of us can truly predict, but I think that's going to open up this whole other economy that we're not even sure yet what it's going to turn into. But it's an exciting time for young people to be looking to the future and being a part of that.
I mention the term Renaissance woman often with all of the teenagers I work with, because when I was a little kid, it was said all the time. And it was always, learn as many different skills as you can. And that it gives you that Renaissance woman ability to do anything. And I think it's going to be very important with everything moving forward, because we don't know what jobs are going to exist 10 years from now. We just know that the world's going to be changing. So develop as many skills and as much knowledge as you can, so you can then move into this position that we don't even have a name for yet. Now it's time for that mic drop advice. We're wrapping up the show, and I want to ask each one of you this question. Talking to a 14-year-old who loves space but doubts themselves, what do you say? And Adam, I'll let you start this.
I don't know a clean way to say it. Don't doubt yourself, right? There's lots of people, myself included, who never thought they would be able to get a job that I have now, or, in the space industry in general. But if you have a passion for it, that's what you want to do, do it. Anybody can get in. So you don't have to have those perfect grades. You don't have to, be the best at math or science. There's something you're good at. And if you have a passion and want to get into the space business, there is a job for you in it, and stick to that, and if you need to talk to people to encourage you to go on, do that. Plenty of people in the industry are there for helping to mentor and talk up these kids to get them in. Right. I know I want to replace myself so I can retire one day. So when I go talk to kids at schools, I tell them, send me a resume. You can be my replacement.
Well, my advice would be, first of all, bring all your creativity. We need your whole brain. I know that the emphasis is on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, but the reality is every astronaut I know is also an artist, is also crafts, or they're musicians. And that is something that every astronaut, from Buzz Aldrin to the astronauts that I work with now, all value creativity. I want young people to understand we need all your talents and skills, not just the technical ones. Bring your whole brain, bring everything that you have to bear. And so value all of everything that you enjoy doing. Bring all of it. And don't feel like if you're not good at math, or you don't feel you're good at math, that there isn't a place for you. There is a place for you. There's a place for everybody to work in space, and every different type of skill that you may have naturally or that you want to do. We need it all in space. So don't doubt yourself, like he said, and bring all your talents and skills, and know that we want you to join us in space.
I would tell that 14-year-old that those feelings are completely valid, and they are going to be with you the rest of your life, and that's okay. I'm currently working on rocket experiments that I don't know that they're going to work. The math all fits together, but there's always that doubt every single day that sneaks in that says, you know what, this might not work the way you think it's going to because nobody's ever done it before. What makes you think you can? But I open myself up to that doubt. I say, okay, I'm going to give myself the opportunity to prove myself wrong. I'm going to at least open up this space that says, okay, I'm doubting myself, but that chance to be right, and go ahead and take that chance and let that doubt carry through, but be okay with it.
Well, thank you all for being here for the show. Any last words of encouragement you'd like to give to our teenagers who are out there dreaming about space and what they would want to do?
I would like to say, aim higher for your dreams. Aim higher than you think maybe is possible or what other people tell you, because I am living proof that you can come from someplace where nobody talked to you about space, and I've gotten to do extraordinary things and travel the world with men who walked on the moon. So aim higher for your dreams. Don't let your circumstances dictate what your pathway is going to be.
I would say always do your best, and then let doors open and walk through.
You guys are growing up in exciting times. Be a part of it. Just step up and join in. See you guys on the moon.
Today, we talked about rockets, NASA, astronauts, and missions to the moon. But what we really talked about is people who were once kids staring at the sky, people who didn't have every answer, people who followed curiosity one step at a time and ended up helping shape the future of humanity. You've shown us something important. Space isn't built by superheroes. It's built by teams, by problem solvers, by communicators, by people who stick with hard things, by people who learn, adapt, and keep going. And here's the important part that matters most. The Artemis mission is about returning to the moon, but it's also about who comes next. The engineers, the scientists, the builders, the storytellers, the innovators. Some of them are watching right now. You don't have to know your whole path. None of these guests did at 15. You just have to stay curious, build skills, say yes to learning, and keep looking up. Because the future of space exploration isn't science fiction anymore. It's being built by real people, and the door is open wider than it has ever been. To our incredible guest, thank you for giving us a behind-the-scenes look into space. To everyone watching Artemis launch, when you see that rocket rise, remember, this is your era. Keep wondering, keep learning, and keep your eyes on the sky.